Hiya. Hi, everybody. Today is Wednesday, the 12th of March. It's actually middle of March already. And we have an interesting show coming to you from the beautiful city of Nairobi. And my name is African Queen Mo. We're soon going to be joined by Susan, who is in backstage waiting, looking forward to join our show. I'm just going to be doing a little bit of introductions. And today we're going to be talking about why Africa and Europe may be plunging into war. Why are they preparing so much for war in Europe? Huh? Do you guys ask yourself those questions? Some of you guys who are living in Europe, are you worried? Does it concern you at all that you're living in a country where, they are, buying weapons, they're getting ready, yeah, for military, they're getting ready, they're furnishing themselves with military equipment, spending so much money on warfare stuff. Why? Because they don't trust that the US would defend them from NATO, that would defend NATO under Trump, because it looks like the US is concentrating more on itself and Europe is feeling exposed. And that's the reason why countries such as Germany, the UK, the Netherlands, Poland, all of them have increased their budgetary spending for military equipment. I remember when I was in the UK a while back, when I was working in the UK, I did a little bit of research on the budget for the military spending. And I was expecting to see a very big budget in the UK for military spending, and it was so small. And then when I compared it with the US budget, I realized like the US budget is like half on military equipment and military spending. And in the UK, it was more, the larger spending was more on the NHS, on social benefit system and things like that. And now they seem to be reducing those and looking forward to increasing spending on military. And you see, the thing is, I think that with that, if you want to know what countries' priorities are, look at the budgets. Don't listen to politicians. Just look at the budgets. Yeah. Meanwhile, let's start, from the beginning. USAID. I had an interesting experience just about yesterday, actually. I went into town, actually around Westlands area in Nairobi, and I went into a shop, a printing shop, and they allowed me, by the way, to use this information, that does printing of merchandise for different NGOs and companies. And I saw a lot of USAID, UNHCR, stuff. Things like these, tumblers, flasks, hats, caps, even tape, tape, the tape that is used to tape their boxes and things like that. And I asked the lady, hey, what's happening? It looks to me, because I was actually trying to figure out how to do some merchandise for our show. Wouldn't you guys like to buy merchandise on African Queen Mo Cardiff show? I was thinking, we could do some nice merchandise, African Queen t-shirts. Give me ideas, flasks, cups, mugs, and then you can buy from me and we can make a bit of money. Yeah. And also, you can also have something memorabilia from our show. So I went in there and I asked her what's going on. She said, you know what? We are so worried. That was yesterday, actually, literally. We're so worried because, we had these big contracts and they don't give us a dime. We take the 100% of the risk to make all these things and then now don't have funding to pay for them. We're just waiting for the past 3 months. We're waiting for the 90 days to be over and then we'll know. And they said that they're not the only ones who are affected. They said the big pharmaceutical companies, they order drugs in big, consignments, huge consignments. What's going to happen to those drugs? They're going to find themselves their way into our market because some of these projects have to do with HIV/AIDS, and there are suppliers in the country, for drug supplies. Sometimes you don't think about the business community and the fact that they are also attached and benefit a lot from a lot of these NGOs and their projects. Sometimes you think about just consultancy services, but what about the suppliers, merchandise suppliers, pharmaceuticals, food, including farmers? People are going to be affected. It's going to be a ripple effect, like Susan was saying before, But I think before I continue, because this is quite interesting, let me bring Susan to the stage. She probably has something to say about that.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be here. Looking forward to the discussions.
Yeah, welcome, Susan. Susan is our lawyer and our mediator, and also very knowledgeable on these things. And Susan, if you want to say anything, just raise your finger and I'll just let you in, about this. Because, I was quite worried about them. And they said they're so worried, they don't know what's going to happen to their business. Because, like, more than 50% of their business is mainly with these NGOs, and USAID is big. And 40,000 people are going to be losing their jobs in Kenya. Plus, 40,000 is probably the direct ones. And the other ones, a lot of people are going to be losing their jobs. So things are looking bad. Meanwhile, there's a report that I came across today that said in the US, USAID official directed that the remaining staff shred and burn all documents. Just imagine that. Yeah. Washington, D.C., March 12th. A senior official at USA directed the agency's remaining staff to be present at the agency's now former headquarters in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday for an all day group effort to destroy documents that are present there, many of which include sensitive information. This is a report by Politico. And the materials which have been earmarked for destruction include the agency's classified safes and personnel documents, classified safes and personnel documents at the Ronald Reagan Building. Politico reported, citing an email sent by USAID Acting Executive Director Erica Carr. Shred as many documents first and reserve the burn bags for when the shredder becomes unavailable or needs a break. So basically, this lady Carr, she directed all employees to label the burn bags with the word secret and USAID stroke B stroke 10 agency shorthand for bureau or independent office in dark Sharpie. So apparently, the email did not even include any reasons for destroying the documents, and the building is being vacated after mass layoffs, which may have caused disruption to routine document destruction and timetables. So, apart from routine document destructions, the fact is that there are documents that are secret documents that are being destroyed as we speak. So, any evidence, I guess, Susan can tell us about this destruction of documents, destruction of evidence. This is serious. Why would you destroy something if you didn't have anything to hide, USAID? These are this USAID. I remember, going into the USAID offices in Kenya for an interview. In fact, I knew I was going to get that job. But after being surrounded by a lot of people, a lot of foreigners, foreign Americans who had come in, they looked older, they looked almost like Peace Corps guys. At the end of that interview, and it wasn't even an interview. I was actually engaged. And all of a sudden, I never heard from them again. And you know why? What usually happens is that if they see that you're aware that you're exposed, yeah, it becomes difficult for them to give you work. They like to give people work who are just typical Kenyans who have never left the country. They really do. They don't like people who may know a lot, and especially evaluators. It would be difficult for us to have work. So anyway, that was my experience with them. But apart from that, all my work in Kenya has been on USAID projects, working for NGOs. So I'm worried a little bit about the people who are working in those projects because we did some very, very good work. There are some projects that are very useful, farmer projects in parts of the country, dairy development kinds of projects, really useful to the local population. We lifted people's incomes and standards of living. We also created small problems here and there that we tried to sort out, but we learned a lot. And the only thing I know is that for all aid projects, we were always made aware that they would come to an end at one point or another. So actually, all aid is going to come to an end, guys. It will eventually. The only people who apparently, this particular business person told me, the only NGO that they spoke to that they do business with is World Vision. That's called World Vision. They talked to them and they said, no, they're relatively safe. Why are they relatively safe? Because they're a faith-based NGO. And you see, Trump is very close to the churches, just like Ruto here in Kenya. Churches have a big influence on the voting population. and therefore they will probably be the last people to be touched. Any faith-based organization, NGO, if you're going to start anything, it better be faith-based if you're going to get funding, guys, you know. So yeah, that's where we are with that. Susan, do you want to say something? You can say something here. Why, before I continue?
Yeah, in fact, as you mentioned, it's a cycle, it's a domino
Mm,
effect. There's so many moving parts, so many people's lives have been affected by this change. I was looking at an article by Irongo Horton. He's the executive director at Amnesty International Kenya, and he wrote this article in the
mm,
Saturday Standard.
mm-hmm,
Uh, it's called "How Kenya and Africa Should Respond to Trump Global Shifts." And something he says here is he's calling it Trumponomics, and he's saying it's easy to miss the broader context, which is apart from America reducing their aid, other nations have done likewise, and the action is going to possibly impact the uh, international obligation to contribute. Uh, he's talking about 0.7%, but I'd read somewhere else it's actually supposed to be 1% um, of the country's gross national income. They're supposed to give that, but he's saying it's likely to go even to as low as 0.5%.
mm-hmm,
Other countries who have reduced their budgets to Kenya, for instance, with the USAID cuts, 60 billion. We have suffered a 60 billion cut, Kenya.
mm-hmm,
Um, then not Kenya. There's been I think a global cut of 60 billion, and then the United Kingdom, Germany, France, and Netherlands have also recently announced cuts of 7 billion, 2.1 billion, 1 billion, and 700 million and 330 million, respectively. So the cuts
mm-hmm,
constitute between 25 to 90% of what they were given. So it's been a ripple effect, like you said, a decision made,
mm-hmm,
a foreign policy decision made in the US, sort of been echoed by other countries. And like you mentioned, perhaps the prioritization is shifting to defense, away from aid. And like you
mm-hmm,
rightly said, you made that comment about the type of um, enslavement that can ensue as a result of over dependence on aid, and that we
mm-hmm,
expect it always, and we're not able to come out of it. Whereas it's important for us as nations, as um, you know, as nations, to really think about aid being a temporary fix, and for us eventually to need it less and less and less and less. So
mm-hmm,
he talks about that as well, that the way it can, it has had sort of arrested our development to a certain extent. So we are suffering some shock, but we should rally back and really be able to push up. One thing he did mention, let me just say this. He said
mm-hmm,
what they're forgetting is that developing countries are net financial contributors to the very same donor countries. He says, according to the One campaign, one in capital letters, one,
mm-hmm,
um,
mm-hmm,
1 in 5 developing countries paid twice as much to service their debt than they received in all external financing. This ratio may raise to 1 to 3 in 2025. So when we talk, you put the debt that we're paying back for loans that we're getting from these countries, uh, it's like we are servicing twice as much. So what he's really saying is that it's a beneficial situation. They're giving us aid through this way, but we're servicing the loans they're giving us, the grants, and we're paying twice. You know, so we're paying the more than we're getting. Literally, that's what he's
mm-hmm,
saying. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. It's a vicious cycle, to be honest. Very vicious, very, very vicious cycle. The fact is that yes, we are repaying our debts at very unfair rates. Interest rates are much higher than any other country. All African countries pay very high interest rates in debt. Everything is expensive, from visa fees to travel. Everything is expensive when it comes to our relationship with those foreign countries compared to, for example, us. So, for example, yeah, I'm going to play you guys. Let me see if I can find that video. It was quite an interesting one, where this lady was saying, how come how come the where are the black farmers? So for example, you see, she was saying, the black farmers are not complaining, but the white farmers are complaining in America. And the reason why that's happening is because white farmers have never been subsidized. They're not beneficiaries of subsidies. Yeah. But white farmers are beneficiaries of subsidies all this time. And they are the ones complaining. You'll find that white farmers, black farmers actually not complaining. And that was quite an interesting one. I'll try and see if I can find it later. But before I continue with that, I just want to continue with USAID and say that most employees at USAID will be placed on leave or fired by midnight on Sunday. And basically, according to Trump's administration, they are plowing ahead with slashing spending. This is about 1,600 workers in the USA will be laid off in a reduction in force effort, according to the notice of the US agency according to the website, basically. Yeah. So 1,600 of them going to be laid off. That's the reason why they're destroying documents now. They're destroying evidence. They don't want to go to court. So what do they have to hide, you people? What do they have to hide? That's the question. Yeah. Yeah. So basically what they're saying is US has permanently canceled 83%. That's basically almost 100 of USAID programs. They were giving them a 90 days. 90 days. That's how many weeks is that? About 9 weeks. Yeah. No, sorry, 12 weeks. Yeah. 90 days is about what? Something like that. But within less than that period, 6 weeks, in half that time, yeah, they've reviewed and decided that 83% of programs have to go. Yeah, and why are they canceling these? This is according to Tuko News. I'm reading from Tuko News. They're saying, following a 6-week evaluation, we are formally discontinuing 83% of USAID projects. Tens of billions of dollars were spent on the 5,200 contracts. 5,200 contracts, guys, that have now canceled in ways that did not further, and in some cases even undermine, the US fundamental national interests. So it's about whether it's aligned to US interests, national interests. And so what they're saying is the remaining 18% of programs they are preserving, which is represents about 1,000 projects. They'll be managed efficiently under the State Department. And that's after consulting with Congress. So basically, they are absorbing them into the government. Yeah, so they call it. So Dodge actually put countless of hours. They were being acknowledged for the amount of time that they put into this, and I believe that Kenya right now, the advice for countries such as Kenya and many other Africans is to focus on improving its business environment. So we have to focus. Kenya has to focus on improving its business environment. What does that mean? In order to attract US investors, particularly in technology and manufacturing, tech and manufacturing. So to be honest, I think that this actually looks like something good is about to happen. There are going to be jobs available in this country if Kenya can put its house in order. If the Kenyan legislature can also put its house in order and assure investors of fairness in case of anything, if we can deal with the issue of corruption, I think that this is an opportunity for people in Kenya to get jobs. Now, the question is what type of jobs? We don't know, but we have opportunity to negotiate, of course. Yeah. So other advice here is that the president's administration should tread carefully to preserve solid bilateral relations while defending national interests. So there's one thing that we have to make sure we defend our national interests and make sure that they don't bring unfair competition into our country. And at the same time, manage that relationship because, there's no person is an island. We need each other. They need us. We need them. and that's just basically the fact. Um, so that's what they're doing. I think that's good because remember, there's this saying that we've always said: trade, not aid. Yeah, this is what we want. This is what we've been agitating for. So I think when it comes, you may not recognize it, but actually, to me, I see it as positive. Having worked in the aid sector for so many years, for all like almost all my life, I would say that looking back now with the benefit of hindsight, I would say that it's not as strategic. It is not strategic. It is not sustainable, and it is not actually helpful to our young people. I can't tell you that my son got a job there or anybody's child is really working in that area. But over 40,000 Kenyans will be jobless, but they'll have an opportunity to get into business, to probably get employment through investors who are going to be coming in. And also, Kenyans themselves should also be investing also in health facilities. Yeah, the same health facilities that have been shut down, or the health projects that have been shut down, Kenyans should think of taking them up because that's a ready market. So for example, VCT centers, things like that, clinics, clinical office, clinics and health clinics and things like that. All those facilities are still going to be needed because um, doctors, nurses, midwives, community workers are going to lose their jobs. A lot of people. Can you imagine? Doctors, nurses, midwives, and community workers. Yeah. And we know already that we have a shortage of these professionals anyway. So if they could find a way to engage with the public and find a way to get paid for their services, then I think that we'll still be on the right side of development. So, but on the other side, USAID basically has raised fears about the future fight in HIV and AIDS. But because millions living with HIV are uncertain about their futures and uncertain about their treatment. But what we can say is that the government has a responsibility. The government, like Susan tells us all the time, is a duty bearer on health, which is a right. So I think that the governments now will be held accountable, and Kenyans are going to be looking to see where their taxes are going. Yeah, Susan, if you have anything to say, go ahead. Oh, Fia is
Uh,
saying something. Sorry. Let's just read here. I think the UK is using a plaster over a gaping wound, a gaping wound of debt too. Aha, that is true. Yeah, the UK is using a plaster over a gaping wound of debt. Very true. Very true. Fear, they don't like to admit when it comes to debt. Because the fact is that the UK actually was the first to cut funding. Yeah. UK aid cut funding a long time ago, even before the US. And then Fear is saying we are waiting for April when increases will be announced. Yeah, or increases in terms of what in terms of social health care or in terms of benefits. Let's wait and see. Yeah, thank you, Fia. Susan.
yeah, I was just going to say that of the money that Kenya was getting from USAID, a third of it was spent on the health sector, and that was a large, there was a lot of focus on that. And I remember during the previous regime, there were issues relating to health, mismanagement of the funds that were coming in through, and there were big queries about where the money was going, whether it was really going into the health sector and stuff like that. So there was, of course, a lot of leakage of money, and we know that's a problem that we've had. Um, you know, um, it's a problem that we've had basically as a nation, that perhaps the money that's coming in, it's not really going where it should go. um, yeah, so it's a serious issue, like you said. It's something that we need to look at. And trade, not aid, that's how they want to see it. And it's interesting to see that we'll attract them through business. We'll attract business, America, through business. And we were warned. I remember Joseph, when he was teaching us, when he was talking to us about geopolitics, one of the shows, he said that Trump is very transactional, and that's what we're seeing. Exactly that. It's very transactional. It's about interest. It's not about uh, the people. It's about interests. It's about you know
Yeah, Trump is acting like a businessman. He's dealing with America like a company. All of them are. All of them are businessmen. Let's see how it works. And Fia is talking about council tax, electricity, and gas. Oh, Fia, yes, I read about that. Council tax is going up, electricity is going up, gas is going up. Oh my goodness, it's going up in April. Fia. I think I should reserve space for you here in my house. We start going back to Africa because things are getting so expensive in the UK. I saw, it's quite related to the cutting of funds because the whole idea is that countries are trying to look nationally and inwardly to try to see how to save money. They're trying to save money, but meanwhile, they're saving money here, but they're also raising taxes, raising cost of living in their own countries. It's the same thing. It's happening, I think, also in the US. Yeah. Again, now we're just gonna say one more final thing about aid is that President Paul Kagame. Now we're moving into our region here. President Paul Kagame. He claims that aid is weaponized and creates dependency. All right. This is a story by a lady called Alice Kagina, and she was saying that he was reiterating that aid to developing countries has been weaponized, used as a tool of control to create dependency. And he said this in an interview with an American blogger and the host of one of the largest social media shows in Rwanda last week. Her name is Mario, or his name is Mario. And he said that, amongst other things, the Democratic Republic of Congo crisis and the handicap of foreign aid over development countries. In that area, he said that while Rwanda appreciates aid and still needs it to an extent, it has been a standard to use it to build capacities for the country to be able to wean itself off it. So it seems to me like Kagame has been trying to wean himself off aid, but his strategy is quite interesting. Let's talk about the strategy later. He's talking about the fact that aid creates dependency, just like we said. He says that whoever gives it to you controls your life. In fact, that is why they want you to stay with aid. They want you to keep receiving aids so they continue controlling your life. They use it as a tool to direct you where to go and where they want you to go. They keep threatening that if you don't do this, we will switch it off. It's politically weaponized. So, according to Kagame, he says Rwanda has been making deliberate efforts to gradually cut dependency on foreign aid used in the country development programs. Okay, so that article continues there, but the question is then, what is Rwanda doing in the DRC if that's the situation? Yeah. So, we know that there is a situation going on, right? I remember when Zapayoro came and explained to us how many times Rwanda has invaded Congo, like 5 times DRC. Rwanda has actually invaded. Let's jog our memory a little bit. And this one I found here online. It talks about the 5 times that Rwanda has actually invaded DRC. 1996, 1997. Rwanda with Uganda backed Laurent Kabila to overthrow Mobutu Sese Seko, citing the need to eliminate Hutu militias responsible for the 1994 Rwanda genocide. So that was the first Congo War. Okay, so trying to look for the Hutu who they blamed for the 1994 Rwanda genocide. Then the second time, 1998. Okay, so 1996, 97, then again 98 to 2003, the second one. So now Rwanda, okay, turned against Kabila when he expelled Rwanda forces. And then that led to a major regional war involving multiple nations. Okay. And then again, 2008, that's about 5 years later, Rwanda was accused of backing the rebel group National Congress for the Defense of the People, CNDP. Okay. And they fought against who are fighting against the Congolese government. So 2008 is where now you see Rwanda being accused of backing a rebel group that is fighting the Congolese government. Then 4 years later, 2012 to 2013, M23 was born. And Rwanda supported it, or was allegedly supported the rebel group, the M23, which briefly captured Goma before they were defeated by the Congolese. And then 2022 to present time, which is about how many more years later? Like about 9 years later, almost 10 years later, decade later. Rwanda is now, from 2022 to present, is being accused of backing M23 again, leading to territorial gains in North Kivu and increased tensions in the DRC. Okay, so basically, all of these interventions have fueled instability in our region, in the Eastern African region, right? And Rwanda justifying its actions as efforts to counter the threats from Hutu militias in Eastern Congo. Yeah. So the latest escalation we've seen so far is 2024-2025, which has raised the fears of a broader regional war. And this is where we ask the question, is Africa preparing itself for a war? Because you see, when you see countries in Africa invading each other and continuing on, and other countries coming in, and countries taking sides, South Africa taking sides with the Congolese government, Kenya is there, Sudan is there. Where are we going with all of this? Yeah, and why are they fighting in the first place? Why are they fighting? According to them, they say that it's got nothing to do they say that it's got nothing to do with the minerals, and it's got everything to do with security, and everything to do with trying to stabilize the region. But we know better, because the UN reports are actually saying something completely different from that. So, Susan, if you want to say anything, this is your chance. Let me see if there are any comments here. No, there are no comments here. Susan,
Doesn't it remind you of the Russia's invasion of Ukraine?
how many times?
Uh, uh, not the number of times, but the
Hmm.
invasion and the reason. Why the
Not
one
quite,
of the
because
reasons.
I understand it a bit differently, but that's okay. You can explain to me how you understand that invasion. It's quite a political one, that one. We should get
Yeah.
Zapayoro on here to explain it. The Russian invasion of Ukraine. Yeah, tell me how you see it. You see it as Russia invading Ukraine without being provoked by Ukraine. I see it as Ukraine being used by Western powers, you know, Ukraine being used by Western powers to provoke Russia to invade it. So Ukraine being used to fight Russia by Western powers. That's how I see it. But maybe I see everybody has their own perspective. You can share yours, and then we can hear from you guys in the comments what you think. Why do you think, you know, Russia is invading Ukraine? Why? What is the reason for that? That's all part of geopolitics. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm just looking at the fact that Ukraine has some of the one, I think, if I'm not wrong, like the third largest deposits of rare earth
Yes.
minerals,
Yeah. Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
look at DRC and you look at the Congo, the
Oh, in
DRC,
that case,
and
yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
they have those mineral deposits that everybody
Oh,
is
yeah.
very keen on. And I think the reason, perhaps some of the reasons why people are looking at them, even the same case with Sudan. Sudan also has gold. Um, and when you have such wealth in countries, and for instance, like Rwanda is what is Rwanda's interest really in DRC? I know they're saying that there are some Rwandese in DRC, but there must have been, and I think Zapayoro told us that they were benefiting somehow from that relationship by not invading, and they invaded because the latest president sort of stopped paying whatever it was that he was supposed to be paying,
Yeah.
and so I'm just looking at the parallels there. In
Yeah, let
Africa,
me
we
let
have
me explain your to answer your question. Rwanda's interest, according to the United Nations and according to their reports, is that the government it has been it has been smuggling mineral. It has been accused of smuggling minerals out of the DRC of Eastern Congo and selling it to multinationals such as the Apple company. Okay. So the Democratic Republic of Congo, it has hired lawyers. Okay. And it has taken them to court. And it's accusing Apple of purchasing minerals smuggled from the eastern part of Congo into Rwanda. And what Rwanda is trying to do is to prove that those minerals are not passing through the, that there's no route, there's no route through Rwanda to, outside of the country. But the fact is that the UN they actually have evidence to show that, in fact, Apple itself was quoting their source as being Rwanda for its minerals. The minerals that make the phones and things like that. And by the way, all the phones and the laptops and everything that we make. And I think I'll play something for you after you finish this your question. I'll play something for you to make it a bit more clear. And meanwhile, Fia says Russia sold stolen wheat from Ukraine to Zim and South Africa. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. It did. It did. Eventually, after when it started going to war, it did. It stole its wheat and sold it to Zimbabwe and South Africa. That's true. And Kenya. Yeah. Can I play something now, maybe? Okay, let me play something for you guys so that you let's get on to this. Let me present. And you guys come to the screen. Let's chat. Join Fia in the StreamYard. You can join her and chat in there. Let me share my screen here. I hope it's not going to mess me up like last time. Let me see here. Yeah. This is a bit long, guys. Just give it some time, yeah? I hope it's not going to be too long, too fast. Make sure that it's...
Hi, brothers and sisters. I hope you're well. So, just making this video because we get quite a lot of Rwandese people asking for evidence regarding the involvement of the military in the conflict in the eastern part of the Congo. They don't take the UN reports as serious reports because they're saying the UN has been in Congo for many years and they have done nothing, which is something that Paul Kagame said on national TV, and the Rwandans keep repeating that. They keep saying that Rwanda has coltan mines in the territory, which is something that Paul Kagame said, but he did not prove whatsoever. He did not provide any evidence, any names of these coltan mines and gold mines in Rwanda. Unfortunately, the coltan mines are in the Congo, and this is proved by experts in mining, in the mining industry. Okay, so Rwanda has little or none coltan whatsoever, not enough to provide the amount of coltan that is required in the world. Right? Then they also go and say that, oh, they support the N23 continuously. Okay, the Rwandan people, they support the N23. They think they're liberating some people that they have been oppressing the Congo. This is the Banyamulenge people. However, many people from this community, the Banyamulenge community, they haven't even been asked. They haven't even been asked. Some of them, they actively support the N23 because many members of the N23, they are Banyamulenge people, which are Rwandese people that came into the Congo in the past, okay, through migration, during colonial times. Some of them came after the G crime in Rwanda. So it's really difficult to identify which ones came before, which one came after. Anyways, they're all refugees, okay? They're all refugees. They're not native from the Congo. They also claim that when the division took place in Berlin of the African territories, the colonial powers, they took a land from Rwanda and they gave it to Congo. This land happens to be the richest land where these mines are located. Very, very convenient, right? Anyways, this has no weight whatsoever historically, because when the colonizers came, the Congo, this territory they're claiming, which is Bukavu and also Goma, the whole region of Kivu, this was part of the Congolese Empire anyways. So Congolese have always been native from these lands, okay? And it was a massive, a vast empire that it was already there. So no territory from the Congo belonged to Rwanda historically or whatsoever. Now I'm going to give you some facts that you can use in order to counter the argument, which is no more than falsification of history, to be honest with you. They're just falsifying history to justify the actions of a rebel group that have been unaliving civilians, innocent civilians, for many years, and that they have been committing crimes against humanity for many years. Now they're whitewashing the crimes, and they're actually trying to portray these M23 criminals, which is what they are, as some kind of freedom fighters, when they have been, and they have always been, notorious for the violation of human rights. So there are many UN reports, there are satellite imagery that shows how the Rwandan troops have been completely involved in the offensives in the eastern part of the Congo. As I told you before, they sent thousands of troops into the Congo. They changed the uniforms into this N23 uniform, which is the old Rwandan army uniform, basically. Bear in mind, many of them, they were in the same year that Rwanda used to wear before. The Rwandan soldiers used to wear before. Notice the plastic boots that they're giving to the soldiers now, which they're also giving to some Islamist rebels in the north part of Kivu. Okay, notice those plastic boots, which are really comfortable to walk those terrains. All right. Also notice the uniform they're using and also the weapons they have. So there is a UN report which is extremely detailed, okay, that provides evidence indicating that Rwanda supports the N23 rebels and the involvement in the coltan and gold mining in the Eastern DRC, and also the smuggling of it in the Eastern DRC. In fact, there's historical events that had happened, okay, in which Rwandan individuals have been literally caught, okay, in a plane smuggling gold outside of the Congo. If you don't know about it, just go on Wikipedia, go on Google, find it, because
So you guys heard that is the coltan and the gold mine, the gold deposits in the eastern Congo. Yeah, the coltan and the gold deposits in the eastern Congo. Yeah, and yeah, there's another one I want to share with you. Yeah, there's another one I want to share with you that's quite interesting and also very informative. Yeah. This one will bring it home to you because you're going to see the connection with yourself and how we are all kind of kind of like enabling all of this. Yeah. I hope it's clear. Oops.
We can't see it.
Oh, you can't see it. Oh, okay. Okay. All right, guys. I think I'm gonna have to show you that too. But it's talking about how everything that we own, including our phones and our smartphones, everything comes from, from those areas, from the Congo. And the question is, how is it sourced from the DRC? How is it sourced? Who is paying the price for this? How many hundreds of thousands of people have to be displaced from their homes so that we can have a laptop or so we can have a phone, just a basic phone? Yeah. Why do people have to be displaced? Why? And that's the question here. And yeah, there's a lot of ethical issues to do with, how minerals are sourced, about, the ethics, and also the fact if we have to unalive people to go and get minerals to develop ourselves and for us to be comfortable, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? Susan, you have anything to say there? I'll try to get
Yeah,
the video for you.
yeah. The rare earths, and they're the ones that are used to make the lithium batteries and all that. Technology, all that technology. So they're in very, very high demand, and the deposits of gold and coltan, and I think and from the DRC, definitely that's where there's a lot of interest in Sudan as well. The
Mm-hmm.
RSF are the ones who are trading in the gold, and they're bringing it down through this is an allegation
Mm-hmm.
that is coming through Kenya also,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
out and
Mm-hmm.
going into the international space. Same with some of the DRC gold. It's also coming through Kenya, and I think that's one of the things that caused some conflict, where they, our standing as Kenyans in the region has sort of dropped because of some of these sort of transactions. Trump's interest in Greenland. They also I've read some articles that say there's also a lot of rare earth minerals there. Ukraine as well. There's a lot of rare earth material. It's in the areas that are occupied currently by Russia, and especially copper. I think that's what the US is looking for, because they want to they need it for their industry in the US. So the rare earth materials seem to be followed with a lot of we can just, like the question you said is about talking about war, impending wars or looming wars or threats of war and conflict, and people wanting to, different nations wanting to invade and or to take over certain countries. And definitely one of the attractions or one of the threatening the things that are propelling that thought, I think, is the search for the rare earth materials, which have become so essential in industry today.
I think it's I think it's also the devaluation of the dollar, the devaluation of currency that's pegged on nothing. People wanting to peg, their currency on gold and these minerals in Africa. So the idea of displacing African populations becomes kind of tenable to some countries. They don't seem to care if it's Africans being displaced as long as they can get access to those minerals. They couldn't give a hoot. So anyway, let me try and see if I can find that. Thank you, Susan. That was good. Anything you guys want to say? Any comments that you have on this issue? Are you guys following geopolitics, or your whole focus is on Raila? What's happening here in Kenya? I'm being nasty, am I? Okay, let me try and see if I can share this again. I hope it will be. Can you see this, Susan? Can you see it?
Yes.
Ah, good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let me play it then.
In your driveway, all
Can
of
you hear it?
is built on the blood of African children. I'm going to tell you the horrible truth about the Congo and
Can you
Rwanda
increase the volume a bit?
ongoing war
It
over
actually
the
won't
most
even go up.
valuable
I don't think.
untapped mineral reserves on Earth. One of those minerals
Can you
is
hear that?
coltan, a single resource with a Congolese reserve worth trillions. Yes, trillions with a T.
Sort of.
The Republic of Congo, DRC, holds over 60% of the world's coltan reserves. The key mineral.
All right. Let me continue playing just
in
for
your
a
phone,
few more
your
minutes.
computer, your electric car, and even rockets going to space. Yet somehow, Rwanda, a country with almost no natural coltan deposits, has become one of the world's largest exporters of coltan. The question everyone should be asking is, how is Rwanda exporting a mineral it doesn't have? And why did the European Union sign a lucrative mineral trade deal with Rwanda in February 2024, but not with Congo, the actual source of the mineral? Pay attention. So why is coltan so valuable? Well, it's corrosion resistant, highly conductive, and it's critical for the chips inside your phones, laptops, and electric cars. By 2030, coltan will be more valuable than any mineral on the planet, and it's the future of clean energy. And the DRC, Congo, is sitting on the biggest stash in the world. So naturally, everybody wants it. A few weeks ago, M23 stormed eastern Congo, overrunning Masisi, Minova, and Goma in a blitz that left bodies in the streets, hospitals overflowing, and thousands fleeing for their lives. M23 is a group named after the March 23rd peace accords in 2012, and they are an offshoot of many Tutsis who rebelled against the Congolese government. They also took over the Rubaya mine, the primary source of coltan in Congo and potentially the world. Remember this incident because it will be relevant later in this video. This situation in Congo and Rwanda is international hocus pocus. On the grandest scale, the trick is to make you think this is just an African problem. You know, the typical story of Africans unaliving each other in a war-torn country. This is a shell game where Western corporations profit while Congolese children die in mine.
All right. Basically, I think you guys get the point. Oh, thank you for you say that you could hear that. So basically, we're hearing that Congo sits on 60% of the world's coltan reserves. And we know that apparently Rwanda the M23 has taken over the Rubaya mine, which literally is all the coltan, almost all the coltan in DRC. And apparently the EU signed, I remember when the EU signed a pact with Rwanda. And I wondered to myself, why didn't they not sign the pact with DRC, the source of this coltan? And not only did they sign a pact with Rwanda, they financed Rwanda to a tune of, I think, was 200 million euro, something like that. A lot of euro to Rwanda. So the question is why? And the assumption was that they were supporting the M23 indirectly. And what this gentleman is saying is that they wanted to make it appear as if it's Africans fighting each other. And in the end, it will be Africans fighting each other. And it's really not. It's the Western people using African leaders to get what they want. Yeah. And especially the people who are ruthless, ready to get whatever they want, whatever they can, regardless of the cost to the African people. And this is a problem that we have with, I have a problem with Kagame myself. Because as much as I supported Kagame and I really thought he was a really great leader, he seems to speak from two sides of his mouth. On one side, he talks negatively about aid and talks about the fact that, Western powers, ABCD, they are trying to, gag us and force us to do ABCD and create conditions which are untenable for us. But on the other hand, he's there invading his brother's country. Why would he do that with the M23? And at the same time, he's exporting minerals to the same people that he talks negatively about, that he presents to us in negative light. That to me is a hypocrite. That's somebody who's not to be trusted one bit. Yeah. So to me, it just seems like very self-seeking. Yeah, Susan.
Yeah, it's quite a puzzling thing about Rwanda, especially hearing the gentleman say that where would they get the coltan from? They don't have that deposit in their country, and yet they're the largest exporters of coltan. I mean, it just begs the question that you smell a rat. This morning, I heard I was in a meeting and somebody mentioned that in Rwanda, because of the embargoes that have been placed on Rwanda because of the fighting in the DRC, they're now trying to collect funds. So, for instance, the churches now have to re-register, and the re-registering fee is like 2 million, and the money has to be paid through the bank, the tithe that is collected, and the donations that are given to the churches
Hold
now
on,
being
Susan.
paid.
Before you go on, are you talking about the same churches that he actually cancelled? That he said he deregistered? Are they the ones that deregistered, or the ones are these new churches, or the same churches that exist, or the ones he deregistered? Because he deregistered so many churches. Just explain. I
Yeah.
think I'm confused.
Yeah, the ones he deregistered, registered them and said you have to register. If you want to run as a church, you have to register again, and you have to pay 2 million. And thereafter, there are requirements about how the tithes and offering and donations will be collected, and the money is deposited through the bank. The thinking being, of course, that they're trying to raise revenue because of the effects of the embargo on the country, because of the war, the invasion of DRC, the eastern part of DRC. So, yeah, it's quite serious.
This is quite amazing, because all countries to me are just hypocrites, because all those European countries are the same ones which provided funds to Rwanda. And that's the reason that's what Kagame says. They're hypocrites. They're funding him to go and steal minerals from Congo. And then when things and then where is that guy of ours? Kamenuka. Sasa Kamenuka, now that it's smelling bad, now things are looking bad. They're all like, trade embargo on the country. Nobody wants to be affiliated now with Rwanda. Hands off. Yeah. So they light the fire and they leave it to burn. That's just ridiculous. Grace has something to say. Oh, such an interesting yet emotive conversation. The devastation on the ground makes my heart bleed. They say Africa is a dump because of war, but they just can't keep off this dump. That's a fact. Yeah. And then Fia says, but he has a stake in the Arsenal Football Club. Really? I had no idea. Susan knows a lot about football. Let me leave this one to Susan to talk about.
People might boycott Arsenal. That's terrible. I'm really saddened by that. I hope they're not going to boycott Arsenal because of um, Kagame's stake in it. After hearing this, I mean, finding out really what's going on.
Can you imagine if Arsenal is linked to the coltan and to the stealing of minerals from the Congo? Can you imagine? That is soiling Arsenal's name. And already Arsenal is always in trouble. Do they ever win anything? Anyway, Susan, I don't really know about much. Anyway, let me not get into football before I get into trouble here with people who are diehard Arsenal fans. And Fia is saying, yeah, she's laughing over there. Yeah. He has a stake in the Arsenal Football Club. Not shocked, not surprised. Well, he can afford it. He has gold and coltan. What the heck? That's for our cars, for electric vehicles, for computers, for, our phones. It's good to learn, One of the things I really enjoy about the geopolitical show is that it kind of takes me a little bit outside of my local scene and forces me to read and learn what's going on. Because, by the way, you guys, these are the things that are influencing geopolitics. It's not the local politics at the level of who's fighting who, which party is against who, I don't know which candidate, presidential candidate. No. That is nursery school. Now we are in high school and university when we're talking about, geopolitics. This is really what influences African politics. And this is what influences what's going on in the world right now. Yeah. Yeah. So, Susan, I hope I didn't interrupt you. Did you finish what you have to say?
No, in fact, as you say, they're very linked. And it's because we're so dependent on aid. Irongo Horton talked about the impact of the USAID, the new foreign policy of the US, on the governance and human rights bodies in the that are supported by USAID, and how that lack of funding, because they're usually quite well funded by these foreign funds, how the impact of loss of funds is going to impact their ability really to be the watchdogs, to make the reports, to do the work they do to keep the country, the various countries on check. I'm not just talking about Kenya, but I'm talking about all over the world. We have institutions that are human rights institutions. We have the national ones. We have the ones which are independent. For instance, this is Amnesty International is writing from, and I know it's in very many countries, and the effect of that reduction of money and how it's going to impact our governance and the accountability structures on human rights, and is it going to change things in any way, especially in countries where we can see that the government system is failing, where the court, the judiciary is not able to operate. There's no funding going to the independent commissions that deal with human rights issues, because their funding has been cut, and maybe there was a lot of dependence on foreign aid. So we need to be, they need to find another way to finance these. But meanwhile, what's going to happen as a result of this? So that's something that we hope that these institutions will continue to do their job, and raise alarms when people are being abducted, and people are being, women are victims of femicide, and when things are just really not going right, people are being arrested, arbitrarily kept detained without anybody knowing where they are. And this is a problem. This is a problem that you can see it's happening all over Africa and other parts of the world. And it's these institutions that really raise the alarm and are able to speak out and bring issues to the court. In Kenya, for instance, they take the matters to the High Court to say, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. We're holding you accountable. Where are these people? Produce their bodies. Habeas corpus, produce their bodies, that sort of thing. But, without the funding, there's a little concern there. You're muted.
Grace is saying, imagine Arsenal is linked to women, girls, children being raped. Imagine. I wonder what fans would say to that perspective. They support rapists? Oh my goodness. And Fia is saying, and all the millions of pounds UK paid for the refugee housing in Rwanda, where's the money? I don't know. I thought Kagame said that he can refund it. Did he not refund it, Fia? This is the reason why you people cannot are struggling to pay your bills, because Kagame is enjoying your money right now as we speak. Yeah. But Grace brings up a very valid point over there about, the fact that football clubs should be careful not to link themselves with African leaders. They should be very careful because, they can get themselves into some very murky waters. Okay, we're talking about people like Apple. Apple are being sued for their conflict minerals. Yeah. And they have to answer questions on the supply chain in the country. And they're saying they're evaluating their legal options. They're being contacted many, many times by the lawyers. There's one of the very big lawyers actually associated with this trial, and his name is Robert Amsterdam. Strangely, he's got a name of a country. And he said that the firm has since reviewed new evidence from whistleblowers. It is more urgent than ever that Apple provide real answers to the very serious questions that they have raised. Okay? Apple has said in the past that it does not directly buy, procure, or source primary minerals, and it has been auditing its suppliers for several years and publishing findings. So they talked about the fact that 100% of identified smelters and refiners in the supply chain for all applicable Apple products manufactured in 2023 had participated in an independent third-party conflict mineral audit for tin. Listen, there are very many things that are coming from this area. There's tin, there's tantalum, and tungsten, known as the 3T minerals. Have you heard of that, guys? The 3T minerals, that means 3T. Tin, tantalum, and tungsten. And then there's gold. And they said that there's no, according to Apple, they said we found no reasonable basis for concluding that any of the smelters or refiners of 3Ts determined to be in our supply chain as of December 2023 directly or indirectly financed or benefited armed groups in the DRC or an adjoining country. Okay. But then the trouble is that these lawyers, I mean, they're really going after them. Another lawyer from Amsterdam and Partners told Reuters that people who worked on Apple supply chain verification in DRC had come forward to say that their contracts were terminated after they flagged concerns on blood minerals, after they flagged concerns that blood minerals were in Apple's supply chain. So you see, some of these people, their contracts were even terminated for flagging that. This is Reuters. This is Voice of America. This is a report by Reuters. Yeah. I think you guys call it Reuters or Reuters. I don't know what you call it, but I call it Reuters. Yeah. So there is a big thing going on right now. And so Apple has been hit by a Belgian probe over blood minerals from Congo. So this thing is a Belgian of all places, Belgian with King Leopold. King Leopold's country. If you guys know anything about King Leopold, you'll be surprised that Belgium is even involved, So basically, that's the thing. The escalating conflict in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, particularly involving Rwanda-backed M23 rebel group, has raised concerns about a potential broader regional war in Africa. Okay, and that's the worry for us. Yeah, we don't want a broader regional war in Africa, and the international community is concerned. UN Human Rights Council condemned Rwanda's support for M23 and launched an investigation into rights violations. United States imposed sanctions on Rwanda officials allegedly involved in the conflict. United Kingdom suspended bilateral aid to Rwanda. due to its involvement in the DRC. Okay, so they're talking about efforts for peace which are ongoing. Angola announcing plans to mediate direct talks between the DRC government and M23 rebels to establish a lasting ceasefire and reduce regional tensions. I remember, I think even the Kenyan president was even involved in that, but I think they didn't quite trust him. And then again, I think even Uhuru, the previous president of Kenya, I think was involved in in these peace negotiations. But the trouble is that it remains uncertain if the Congolese government, which has consistently refused to negotiate with M23, will participate in the discussions. So trying to get the government of Congo itself, DRC, to participate is an issue. So the area just basically remains volatile with potential for escalation if the diplomacy efforts fail. So neighboring countries are trying to come in. They're trying to call the fire. So many people have lost their lives. In fact, a lot of even South Africans lost their lives. Yeah. And apparently, after saying that he will refund, he has said he's not going to refund, according to Fear, jumping back over to Rwanda. You see, these people in Kikuyu, there's a term they say kugana kugoka, to say and to unsay. Kugana kugoka. In Kiswahili, it's called what? Kigeugeu. Kigeugeu, I don't know what it's called. Grace, what is it called in your language? What is it called? Kigeugeu means somebody who is, what do you say, Susan? You're the one with the English words. Kigeugeu. Somebody who can turn around on you. A traitor, kind of like somebody who's a betrayer. People who betray you. Friends who betray you. Yeah? That they turn around and they don't actually. So basically, this is the worry for us, that we might be actually going into war and conflict. And one of the signs that I can say is that there's a very big move in the West, in Europe, for rearming themselves. They're spending a lot of money on arms, and we should be concerned. Who are they going to use those arms on? Are they going to use them on each other? Are they going to use it on us as they fight each other? What's actually going to happen? Yeah, and we should be aware. And that's the reason why I think we should not underestimate the importance of trying to make peace, find ways to relate with countries on other things, such as, that's the reason why if you see on my on my thumbnail, you see a picture of an owl. First of all, one of the things that owls do is that they hunt in the night, and they are wise. And at the same time, they're right now at the moment, and this is not quite very related, but there are lawmakers in the US who are being urged not to allow the killing of very many owls of a certain type, what they call an invasive species, to protect another little type of owl. And so the issue is the barred owls, which are native to East and Northern America. They said that they started to appear in the 1970s, and they were now being displaced. They're displacing many of what they call the spotted owls. And so they're trying to actually kill so many owls, and to kill one owl, it will cost over $3,000. It will kill. They want to kill approximately, I think, 1,500 owls, and it's going to cost like $3,000 or so. I don't know. It's going to cost a lot of money. So the reason why I linked this is to say that what has happened here in this particular case is that scientists, both from Israel and Jordan, have come together, and they're finding common ground on trying to save the owl. You understand? So we need to find common ground in Africa, in African countries, to try to save our continent from these kinds of wars. Because you see, these displacements do nothing for us. They just keep us back, and they keep us undeveloped, underdeveloped. We need to go beyond what.
We can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now? Can you hear me
Yes.
now? Okay, sorry. Yeah, otherwise these wars will just continue. Sorry, I think I missed something up there. So let's find common ground. Flip-flop. Judas. That is right. Kigeugeu is flip-flop. Yeah, having a flip-flop. That's fabulous. That's fabulous.
What watermelon?
Watermelon, cucumber.
Watermelon, the
I
red
like
and the green.
watermelons. I don't like people associating watermelons with people who I don't like, with flip flops. I don't care about cucumbers, so that's fine. You can use that one. Yeah, but
Um,
anyway, guys, yeah, Susan, yeah, you have anything to say
yeah,
there?
I just wanted to add another area of conflict, which is the South Sudan. And Uganda has deployed special forces to South Sudan's capital, Juba, to help President Salva Kiir secure it. Uganda's military chief, Muhoozi, said. So again, so this is DRC, and now Uganda is going to help in South Sudan. The 2018 peace agreement is under threat. Then we have in the Sudan proper, we have the SAF, Sudanese Armed Forces, fighting with the RSF, the Rapid Support Forces. So when you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about it's quite a volatile situation. This just in the East African region, East and Southern African region, and we're having
Yeah,
three
and I'm going
countries.
to read you
Also,
some.
there's
It's really crazy. Okay. Mm-hmm. Also, there's
yeah,
something. Mm-hmm.
and also in Djibouti, there's also some destabilization going on there.
Yeah.
So all around us, and we know Ethiopia, there's been a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
And
sure
Eritrea.
it's 100% resolved. Yeah, and Eritrea. And the interesting thing is that it's the UAE that is funding the RSF, and the RSF are in control of the areas with gold, and the gold is coming through Kenya. And don't forget, the RSF declared a parallel government in Nairobi. Remember that story.
They
So
did.
these were
They
some of the
did.
things that contributed to our loss in the AUC chairmanship. So there is
Meanwhile,
conflict all around us.
yeah, somebody's asking you to talk about Northern Ethiopia. Can you talk about Northern Ethiopia? Do you have any information there? What's happening in Northern Ethiopia?
No, we'll have to check that, but I know there has been some conflict even in Eritrea and also
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
south and
We
some
need
parts of
Zapayoro. We need Zapayoro here. He'll give us
Ethiopia.
a
Yeah,
very
but
in-depth, yeah, view.
there's conflict all around us, all around us.
Except in Tanzania. While we assist Sudan to have a parallel government, ourselves we come into what do we come? What kind of government do we have right now? We have an enmeshed government. We don't even have an opposition anymore. Oh my God! Let me not go back to Kenyan politics. Yeah. I'm going to wind up. I want to wind up this show by giving you some information here by reading something from the World Economic Forum, what they say about Africa. Do you know they talk about us all the time? They're always evaluating us. They're always checking up on us. They can't keep their eye off Africa. They can't keep their eye off us. They're always evaluating, trying to see what are the advantages, disadvantages of working with us. There's this article by the World Economic Forum in 2023 that talked about why Africa will become a prominent player in global geopolitics. This is like a case for Africa, right? And I'm just going to read a few things about it. They're talking about the major issues: Africa's abundance of strategic resources, favorable demographics, and attractive growth prospects. Okay, so it will give its leaders leverage in modern affairs. So they're actually paying attention to African leaders because they think that they have access, I mean, they have control over this abundant strategic resource in terms of human resources, because you talk about demographics, it's humans, right? It's us. And then also they talk about the fact that despite the bright prospects, intra-regional conflicts, widespread poverty, and growth crippling corruption stands as hindrances. So corruption is our problem. Interregional conflicts is another problem, and poverty. And then they also say that while domestic political volatility and uncertainty continues to cloud the outlook, there have been some improvements in governance and democratic reforms. I'd like to know which ones those are, you guys. Which ones are they? So they're talking about the fact that the average age on the continent is 18 years old, which is 14 years younger than any other region in the world. So we're the youngest continent. So these are what they call favorable demographics. These are good for them. Yeah. I have to be careful how I use my language. I have to try and simplify my language. This is actually good. It's something that people are looking at and saying, wow, Africa has young people. We also have, they're looking at the middle class growing, reaching 1.1 billion by 2060, up from 355 million in 2010. So these are research institutions. They have said that they're looking at a middle class. Why? That creates a big pool of people who can buy e-commerce, people who are able to buy what is being made by other countries. Yeah. So they talk about policies to accelerate these trends will differ by country. In Ethiopia, we are seeing far more government involvement than in the more market-driven models. So they're talking about Ethiopia still being driven by government, is more government regulated in Ethiopia. Ethiopia, wako nyuma, they're behind. But countries like Ghana and Kenya are good for countries that are producing things to be bought, things to be sold. So they're also talking about our richness in strategic resources. When they say strategic resources, they're talking about minerals. 30% of our mineral reserves, are in Africa. And the demand is going to grow for these rare earth minerals, rare earth metals. So we expect, they're even calculating the number of tons, 315,000 tons by 2030, more than the volume in 2021. So Congo alone holds over 70% of the world's cobalt. We were talking about coltan, but now let's talk about cobalt. Congo holds 70% of the world's cobalt. Okay, and it's used in many applications. It's used production of lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. Okay, and apart from that, by the way, they also found cobalt in Kenya, by the way. And there are many other countries where they're not telling us that there are minerals. Like Kenya is suspected to have a lot of minerals. Eastern African countries, I believe, our regions have a lot of mineral, and they may not be letting us know about where they are. So they're saying that with the East, what do we say, the free trade arrangement, free trade area, Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Yeah, these guys are now trying to come in before the rest of us can start trading with each other. So we have to know that there's a competition for those open borders, for those opportunities that are coming for Africans. So before Africans can even reach the cobalt in DRC, all the Western countries are coming for it. Europe is also coming for it. They're arming themselves. And they have military bases all over Africa. So we need to understand, what are our risks? What are the threats? What are the risks? What are the opportunities? Yeah. We need to do a sort of assessment, of an analysis, yeah, about the risks, the threats, and all that. And make sure the most important thing is the opportunity for Africans, that we should be interested and look into things like mining. That should be something that we should be thinking of, not just trading and selling and buying things that are being made in China and other countries. We should be thinking about mining what we have. Yeah, mining is not just for a few people. Mining is going on in our countries. That's a very big business. A lot of people are mining. We should think about it. How do we get into the mining sector? Are we thinking about it? Are we thinking about it? Are we taking advantage of our Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement that allows free movement of labor, of people and goods across Africa? So we can make something here, move it to Tanzania, move it to other countries, bring it back. It's going to be difficult at the beginning, but young people should be thinking about non-traditional sectors of the economy. Look at mining, guys. Look at it. You're hearing a lot about minerals. Why is it that you hear about minerals and you hear about politicians associated with it, but the regular people are not associated with those minerals? Why are they out of bounds for us? Why can't we all become rich people like China? Africa can be the next China and even more. because we have all those resources. So it's a matter of changing policies and starting to focus on the non-traditional sectors. For the young people, especially people who have energy, people who have money, they can put it together. They should think about mining, think about mines, getting involved in trade and that kind of thing. And also minimizing corruption and making sure that we follow the law and make sure we don't displace our young people, because you need them to do the work for you. You need them to work with us. We need that human resource. Human resources should not be shipped off to different countries to work as slave wages when we have cobalt and coltan and gold and all these things on the continent. And apart from that, we also have agricultural land that we can farm and produce and add value to products. So, guys, we are lucky. We're in Africa. Yeah. So even if there's a threat of war, there's also an opportunity for us to not get into war and to make peace, and actually to insist on peace and to fight and to defend our continent and to make sure that we get into trade as much as possible. All right, that's all I have to say for today. Susan, you can wind up.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to one of the questions that was raised. I've just checked, and in northern Ethiopia, there was the Tigray War between 3rd November 2020 and 3rd November 2022. It was fought in the Tigray region between forces allied to the Ethiopian federal government and Eritrea on one side, and Eritrea on one side, and then the Tigray People's Liberation Front. I remember even during athletics, and you had to be so careful. The commentators had to be so careful about differentiating between the Ethiopians and the Eritreans and stuff like that, and it had to apologize if they made a mistake. And they say the reason for this, and this is what I'm just getting, is that it has something to do with the implementation of ethnic federalism since 1991. It says that this strategy politicized tribal identity. And that's perhaps why you have this group calling themselves the Tigray People's Liberation Front. But they say the thing is, although there's some sort of peace, it's still in quite a volatile situation. So that's just the thumbnail of it, but I'm sure it is way more detailed about that. But
Yeah.
this seems to be triggered by political reasons rather than the struggle for minerals. And
Yeah.
we've seen for Sudan, the struggle has been driven by, of course, control of where the minerals are and political reasons. DRC, we're seeing, is actually about the minerals.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually
Yeah,
about the
in the
minerals.
Sudan, yeah, in the Sudan it's also land, arable land.
Yeah,
Sudan
yeah,
has a lot of arable land, the same way that Turkana also has a lot of arable land, believe it or not. They have a lot of water in Turkana.
yeah,
That's something that people don't know, that Sudan has a lot of water, and there are very many countries that actually have got farms, huge tracts of land that they're producing food for their countries, because most of those Middle Eastern countries, they can't farm so they use Sudan. And so, there's that feeling of, once you get there, like squatters. If a squatter comes to your land and starts farming and is able to make money from your farm, you think it's going to be easy to remove them. Eventually, they'll start feeling like they own it. Yeah. So the people get displaced and they end up being displaced to places which don't have good soils to produce food, and they become poor. And that's what has happened in South Sudan. That's how the country has been split into two. Yeah, I think the next time that we're doing the geopolitics show, we're going to answer that question. We're going to bring on Zapayor so that he can explain some of these things, and also do a little bit more research and consolidate my research and on the issue of Sudan, and explain to you the link with the Middle East, UAE especially, and Sudan, and then we'll talk about Ethiopia, because it's also important to talk about Ethiopia, yeah, and Eritrea a little bit more in depth. So thanks, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, Grace Agenda. You're more than welcome. Fia, you're more than welcome. We also appreciate your time and for spending time with us here. It's nice to tackle these subjects. For all of you guys who are watching, we see 5 of you there watching. Asanteni, Karibuni, and welcome again. Share this with your friends and remember to give us thumbs up because it will always help the algorithm to promote our show, just to show it to more people. So we'll be seeing you on Friday with a very interesting show because it's on relationships, and on Sunday with mental health show. So this is the last of the more serious shows. Monday and Wednesday is when we have the more serious ones. Then from Friday, we have a good time. Friday and Sunday, we talk about our manenos. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I hope you learned a lot today. And any questions that you have or comments, please follow up. Write some comments later, and let's after the show, and we'll use that for the next show, the next Wednesday. Okay, bye bye. See you on Friday. To dos and good night, and thank you for being here. Kwaherini from Susan and I. Good night, Susan.
Good night.
Yeah. Good night.